And we're live. What? That's right. I don't even have an intro anymore because I am so lazy. I didn't even fix it. And that needs to be fixed for this 2023 NFL season. What's up, Loyalist? What's up, everybody? Appreciate each and every one of you being here. And today we are going to talk about big moves. Well, I don't know about big moves, but moves. We got to make roster moves. Obviously, with a new offense, new head coach, new offensive coordinator, new everything on the offensive side. We, as a team, the Indianapolis Colts, no, I'm not a member of the Indianapolis Colts. Wouldn't mind it. I promise you that. But, that ain't going to happen. But I am going to talk about, Loyalist and I, some moves that we think is quite possible that the Indianapolis Colts could make this offseason on the offensive side to kind of help Shane Steichen insert his new offensive scheme, okay? So appreciate you, Loyalists. It's been a while since we've been live. How's things going, my guy?
Well, since we last talked, I've had a surgery. My niece has had her baby, so little bad, but a lot of good. So all in all, ready to go.
Awesome. What is up, Ant? What is up, Basil? Appreciate you guys being in here. Don't forget to smash that like button if you haven't done so already. And first and foremost, we're going to walk into this, and we already know, obviously, the quarterback room is going to have a massive changeover. Or is it?
Better.
I mean, that's the scary thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I hate to say this. Matt Ryan could legitimately be on our roster. He may not be let go. He may not get traded. I mean,
really? We've been gone for this many weeks, and now we're going to start with that? No!
I mean, it's possible.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying it is quite possible, right? I mean, It is. One guy I don't think will be on this team once he sees the film is the backup quarterback, and I'm not talking about Sam Ehlinger. I think Sam Ehlinger has the best shot of being on this roster of the three guys that we have in that quarterback room. But yeah, Shane doesn't have the history that Frank had with a certain number 9. And I don't think he'll be on this, even though he is signed still. I don't think he'll be on this team. I think that'll fill a spot. What do you think?
Honestly, I can't really see a way that it makes sense to keep either of them. I mean, yes, I agree wholeheartedly with Nick Foles. Nick Foles, I mean, made it clear he was here to play under Coach Reich again. He was here to for that correct connection and stuff. And he wanted a couple years because of his kids, and he wanted to have some stability and stuff. But as well as I do in the NFL, stability is only goes as far as your production. And to your point, if he watches that film and stuff from last year, the production that he had was very undesirable. We'll just leave it as nicely as that.
As nicely as that is absolutely right. Now, there's not a doubt in my mind, your mind, any Colts fan's mind that Ballard is looking to get a quarterback in this draft, right? I mean, it is what it is. So that's going to leave maybe a spot open, depending upon what happens with Ryan, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If the Colts and Ryan and Steichen decide to keep him, there won't be a quarterback spot open because there'll be 3 spots there, right? Already filled. But if Ryan is gone, if he is traded or if he's released or if somebody talks him into retiring, but from what I'm understanding, he's not looking to retire. He's looking to stick around in the NFL.
Come on, CBS. Come on, CBS.
There is a free agent quarterback out there right now that I think could help come in and bring in this Shane Steichen style offense quite well. I'm not saying he's going to be the starter. He'd be the backup quarterback, right? Maybe fighting for starting time, during, the training camp and stuff. But I'm looking at Gardner Minshew. He's played very well over there. He has shown that he can still play very well, and he understands the system and would be able to help bring that system in under Shane Steichen. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, I've always been a fan of Minshew mania. The mustache alone makes me like the guy, you know. But like you said, you know, he has familiarity with the Steichen offense. He knows, I mean, what he knows what Steichen wants from these guys. And to your point, you know, he produced fairly well on that Eagles team, which I understand. Eagles team, you know, though they were talented enough that to perform fairly well, wasn't the tallest act. But my point is he could come in here, he could just get some stability, be a voice, you know, maybe be able to communicate better to these guys in the quarterback room, you know, when Steichen's not there, because he understands the terminology. He understands what it is the coach wants that maybe isn't spoken. And to be honest, you know, you say he won't start. He could possibly start the first early season, or you know, early part of the season, because we know Ballard likes to ease the rookies in. You know what I mean? And I get it. There's a lot of people thinking, hey, you know, let's just start the rookie like we did Peyton Manning. You know what I mean? And I understand that philosophy. There again, it depends on who the rookie is. Now, you know, if it's AR-15, it's like, okay, this young man's going to need more time to acclimate. You know, if it's a CJ Stroud and he can come in and get up to speed early in, you know, OTAs and stuff like that, okay, let's see what we have there. But like you said, he's a young quarterback. You know, he's got some juice to him, as they like to say, you know. And the thing is the way he can communicate to the players whenever the coach isn't there, way he might see something that just another set of eyes that has seen this scheme in production now for 2 years.
Absolutely. And like you said, Minshew wouldn't be an expensive ad.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, I think he played his 2-year contract with the Eagles was 2 years, I think a little over $2 million a year on average. I don't expect much more than that with if he signed with us for a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
And in all honesty, like you said, you know, he has starting experience. He's played well, not only with the Eagles, but he's shown a lot of good signs when he was playing with the Jags, right? We all know him. You are right. The only thing is when you draft a quarterback and, you know, people say, throw him in the fire, start that rookie out, blah, like you was talking about earlier. It also has a lot to do with the mental makeup of that player, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some quarterbacks just don't jump into the fire well, right?
Yeah.
And you know, they could get, you know, shell shocked basically, you know, because the NFL is so much different, so much faster. There's so much more to learn and understand and keep an eye on and things of that nature. And sometimes, you know, letting them sit, even, you know, the first 6 weeks of the year can be a huge benefit to certain quarterbacks out there. So I don't know. I'm not going to be out there during the draft, you know, or during the combine. You know, was it next week? I think.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be there in the interview room trying to figure out if this guy can hold down, you know, starting position week 1. But it is what it is.
And I'll be honest with you. I mean, I would argue that Patrick Mahomes would sit there and, if he was to be honest, would sit there and say that Andy Reid having him sit for the majority of that first season probably heightened his career trajectory, just because he had that time to acclimate and see Alex Smith and see how he just led this team that he's going to be taking over and stuff. You know, and there's just so many intricate things to that quarterback position. It's like, it's so, I mean, these guys are you know, you figure like if you go with CJ Stroud, they're playing in the playoffs. Then they turn around and next day are getting ready for combines. Then I mean, it's just a constant. That first rookie season is just all smushed together from the end of their college season to the beginning of their pro career. It's like, you know what? Sometimes giving these guys just a chance to, you know, bury their nose into that playbook, get a chance to see how these guys communicate and what, you know, what works and stuff. And yeah, I would like to see the rookie quarterback get more than one game like Patrick Mahomes did this year. But there again, it doesn't mean to me that it has to be week 1 or week 2. You know, the league's changed a lot now also as far as starting a guy out. I mean, unless you're just a dude like Andrew Luck, you know what I mean? And even 2012 versus 2023, the game and just the all the different intricacies, the RPOs and the empty backfields and just everything that goes on. It's definitely going to be one of those. See how they acclimate during the off season and training camp and stuff, and then make your decision, I would think.
Absolutely. That is something that you do with every, a lot of people thought that Nick Cross, the rookie safety, as well as he played during training camp, was going to be the starter. And he did. He came out and he started. But he ended up having to leave and not be the starter for a while, right? The rest of the season. A veteran came in and took over and played very, very well in his place because he needed that time to sit down. On February 23rd, I dropped a tweet. It was a poll. I asked, outside of the quarterback, what is the biggest need for the Colts this offseason? Out of 400 votes, 61.5% said offensive line. All right. Offensive line. So that's the next thing we're going to discuss right here is the offensive line needs for the Indianapolis Colts and the offseason moves there, right? Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, we can definitely grab ourselves a guard or an extra tackle or something of that nature in the draft. But there's two players, and they're both guards, and they're both from the Eagles.
Yeah,
that I think that the Indianapolis Colts could legitimately go and get to help, right? One is a free agent this year. One is a fourth-year guy, right, that the Colts would have to trade for. But if they don't offer too much for him, I think it's a great trade. First and foremost, Isaac Seumalo, is a free agent this year, 30 years old. Yeah, would not be that much. But the problem is, all right, he's had some injury history. He's had quite a bit of injury history. Now, last year, he played all 17 games. Good for him and played well and was a specific reason why the Eagles' offensive line was as good as it was last year. Do you look at that, the fact that he finally played a full season like Paris Campbell did, for us, who he had injury history as well. Yeah. Do you go get him? Isaac would probably cost anywhere between $4 and $6 million a year. So that is not an expensive grab for a veteran offensive lineman. And that's about what Chris Ballard grabbed Mark Glowinski for, when he picked him up from Seattle, right? And this is a guy who knows Shane Steichen's scheme and offensive philosophy. He could help bring that in with the other offensive linemen. I think that could be a definite move that Chris Ballard makes this offseason.
Yeah, and seeing another thing here again, to communicate, we don't know who the new O-line coach is going to be. But, that blocking scheme with Philadelphia is different than what the Colts have run over the last several years. So to sit there and have somebody who's been in that system and be able to communicate to these guys, I mean, and to your point, when he was on the field this year, he produced at a really good level. It wasn't like, he just, he was just a stopgap. No, this young man really, was accountable and did, played good enough. To me, if you bring him in, that still doesn't eliminate drafting somebody in the draft. Throw a couple pieces at that, because to me, you throw a couple pieces at that right guard spot, try to put a little competition for Ryman at left tackle, or if if somebody falls to you, obviously draft. But cornerback's another one I look at and I'm like, So, there are some holes, and that's the whole reason I don't want to trade up, for a quarterback, is because I want to use the draft capital to fill some of these other holes.
Yeah. The other option that the Philadelphia Eagles have currently on their roster is the guy who filled in for Isaac last year at guard, and then also played tackle, right? Mm-hmm. When their tackle went down for a few games. Jack Driscoll is a guy who I wouldn't mind the Colts sending a late pick over to the Eagles and saying, hey, I'd like to have this dude can play tackle. He can play guard. He can play center. He's the Jack Mewhort, or no, not Mewhort. Who's the guy that the Colts had for all that time that, was just
yeah.
could play any position.
Went to Tampa Bay. Gosh darn it. I hate when I draw a blank on names.
Either
I know.
way.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Sorry.
Yeah. Jack Driscoll, he's going into his 4th year. He's got starting experience. He understands the scheme.
Joe
he
Haig
understands the system, and he plays well. I think this is a situation that I think the Colts absolutely could go out and grab this young man. And again, it wouldn't cost that much. Granted, you're giving up, maybe a 5th-round pick for him, but I think a 5th-round pick for a guy or a 6th-round pick, or somewhere between 4th and 6th, for a guy who's solid. He's not going to be filling in for Isaac at the guard position, from what I understand. As a matter of fact, let me get in here because I just got done talking to. I asked a guy who follows Philadelphia quite harmoniously. Johnny Uleka, you could go check him out at Johnny U9322 over on Twitter. He says that if Kelsey comes back, then the 2nd-round pick from last year, Cam Jurgens, probably slides to right guard, right? And that'll leave Driscoll available, not as much of a need for Philly. So we could probably go grab him.
Yeah, and like you said, Joe Haig, is that who you were talking about? Was Joe
Yes.
Haig? Okay. And I remember, this guy could plug in, and he wouldn't just plug in. He'd play really sound football. I mean, he wasn't starter caliber, but he was really sound, and you didn't have as much drop off. Similar to what we get from Danny Penner at the center position. You put him at guard, it's like not so good. You put him at the center, and it's like, okay, you don't see as much drop off. And yeah, so if you could find a couple pieces, like you said, to support the draft, you know what I mean? Because hopefully this is, Chris Ballard said at the end of the presser, he's going to reassess things, and he realizes that there needs to be some changes. For me personally, this is where I want the changes the most. I love what the man does in the draft. And I even respect the heck out of what he does in free agency. I just need him to do more of it. He nails these decisions for the most part really well. So now let's just do more of it, and maybe get this team fast tracked a little bit closer to, playoff contention and stuff, because, you look over here at DeForest Buckner and Quentin Nelson, and it's like these guys are, that clock's ticking. They know this is the time. This is when they, in the next couple of years is when they need to be, really getting those legitimate opportunities to make some noise in the playoffs.
Basil says Suamalo got $7 million last year. You think he'd take a $2 million pay reduction? I'd be okay with him for $5 million for sure. Played fairly well last year. Now, that was the end of his contract, and usually the end of your contract is the higher part of the contract. With the contract that he had signed with Philly, it was a 3-year, $5.5 million contract. So, if I get him for 4 to 6, like I said, 4 to 6, I think he would be an absolute good deal. And I wouldn't go more than 2 years. He is 30, and he has had some injury history. But it still, to me, is worth it big time. The Basil asked about Will Hernandez. My only issue with Will Hernandez is the same issue he had when he came out of college, okay? He's like a T-Rex, right? That's my problem with Hernandez. Any offensive lineman, you want to have a decent arm length, okay? And, I get that he plays guard, so the arm length ain't as important as when you're a tackle.
Especially on the right side.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question for you. Would you, okay, we know what we got with Danny Penner. There's a couple young men in the draft that, you could get in the 2nd, the 3rd round that would really plug in nice at center. Is there any potential to possibly looking at the idea of moving Ryan Kelly over to right guard a little bit to create competition there? If you draft, like Schmidt out of Minnesota, to plug in behind Penter at that center spot, and then have Ryan Kelly move over to that guard spot. And I get it. He's never played guard in the NFL. But my point is does just that change, does that allow him the opportunity to revitalize his career? Because Ryan Kelly has been a good player for this team, and he's had a rough year and a half, understandably, personal stuff and everything going on. But would you be willing to move him to right guard if you find a good, solid young piece, at that center spot to be that competition? Maybe even be your starter for the first, part of the season.
Well, if we end up getting a center in the draft, I think, depending upon where you get him, and like you said, if it's a later round pick, I don't think you end up moving Kelly. I mean, you might, but I think you keep starting Kelly this year and then trade him. That's what you do. If you're getting a guy to replace him at center, because what that Kelly can play very, very good at center.
Mm-hmm.
Right. He just, like you said, he had a down year last year and the end of the 2020 season or 2021 season as well. But I don't think they move off of Kelly.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to, at least not this year.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people are in that whole aspect of, what have you done for me lately? If you have a down year, get rid of you. That's just how fans are. But in the NFL, you're not that way, because everyone knows that everyone has downtime. You're not going to play at a Pro Bowl, all pro level year after year after year, unless you're Patrick Mahomes, Peyton Manning, Aaron Donald. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
but my thing is how important is that salary cap saving? You know what I mean? Because, right now, as it stands, the Colts are a lot tighter on that salary cap than they have been in a very long time. And for me, that's where I look at Ryan Kelly. That's where I look at the Alie-Cox and stuff, as far as it was not totally about their play, because to your point, I believe Ryan Kelly could come in and really, you give this guy a quarterback, a consistent quarterback for some time, I think Ryan Kelly wouldn't take long to get back on track. But the thing is that salary cap saving, do you have to make that one of those sacrifices that you just don't want to make, but you have to?
I don't think so, because the way the salary cap is increasing year after year between now and 2027, in the big monster. Yeah, I get that our salary cap is not. You're like, we need more money. Not necessarily. We have a lot of talent on this team, right? We have a ton of talent, and we're paying that talent right now. Mm-hmm. A lot of that talent, and a lot of it is still under rookie contracts, right? Mm-hmm. So, me personally, I don't think that, trading Kelly to get that extra money, because I don't think it's not like you're going to save so much money, and you're going to get some money, but then you're going to have a down production at that position, right? That's the problem.
Yeah.
I feel like you lose production at that position by freeing up a few $1 million. That don't make sense to me.
Well, and here again, this is where I'm is if you go earlier, second or third round pick and get a Schmidt out of Minnesota that you think is a plug and play guy immediately. I would say that you could plug Schmidt in and get equal production that we've gotten from Ryan Kelly over this downtime. You see what I'm saying? But yet now, if you move Ryan Kelly, if you get rid of him, you create that cap space, or if you move him over to the right, now you've solidified another spot. And then you don't need as much cap space to pick another veteran guard like we were talking earlier. That's all. Like I said, there's a lot of possibilities, and I get it. This is just a conversation, but it's just one that, because I don't think I'm ready to cut ties for Ryan Kelly yet, because I really do believe, first off, if you keep him at center, you bring a rookie in he does not have to worry about, Ryan Kelly at that center spot. He's going to communicate
for the center spot behind
there. Yeah, there again, might as well. He doesn't cost anything. He's produced well at the center spot. But then now you're not solving your guard spot. And that's where I'm like, okay, is that money is that savings that you get from cutting Ryan Kelly or trading him worth enough to maybe get rid of him and get 2 young pieces for the price that you would pay Ryan Kelly this year?
Well, like I said, there are some really solid guards in this draft as well. that you could grab on the cheap too.
Interior line looks really good on this draft. The more I've been looking at it.
Now, moving on from the offensive line, you already kind of tapped into it a little bit, going to the tight end position. I don't see how Alie-Cox stays on the team.
Yeah.
We are so deep at tight end right now that I don't see how. Now, we talk about, like I said earlier about, having a down year. Alie-Cox did have a down year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely had a down year. But we've been waiting on Alie-Cox to break out for how long? Since he's been here. And he has yet to do that, right? You got guys like Kylan Granson, who is definitely a very good receiving tight end, a deep threat kind of guy. Not saying he's a Kelsey, but, he's in that style of tight end. And then, of course, you got your Jelani Woods. And then let's not forget Ogletree was lighting it up last training camp before his injury, happened and put him on the sidelines. We are so deep. I think that is a move that's going to free up a little bit of cap space for us and not hurt that position at all.
Yeah, because like you said, you get good pass catcher with Kylan Granson. You get a good pass catcher with Jelani Woods. And if anything that we saw in training camp can transfer onto game day, you're going to have that with Ogletree. Now, I get it. These guys need to learn to block better and stuff. But you can sit there and bring in somebody a lot cheaper than what Alie-Cox is making this year just to be a blocking tight end. So if you can find a trade partner, or if you can find a way to package it into a trade or something, I mean, I understand that move completely. Plus, then you sort of take the one guy as the outlier as far as age-wise with this room. You take that out of the mix. And like I said, heck, we got that Nikolic, or I've always he proved to be a decent enough blocking tight end last year. Even if we didn't add somebody, which I still think we should and could, but even if we didn't, I think that we have a decent enough blocking tight end that makes that Alie-Cox salary not nearly as important. And man, I'll tell you right now, this offense with these tight ends, the three that we're talking about, and even if you keep Alie-Cox, I am here for, because I really do think that that's going to be the thing that we see first and early on with a young quarterback, is these tight ends really popping off.
Absolutely. And looking at his contract, just releasing him, the thing is, we'd only have $2.4 million in dead cap. If we release Alie-Cox, we would save a ton of money.
Save a little over $4 million, I think, isn't it? Or right at $4 million.
Yeah. So, and then next year there's no dead cap. Obviously, we have a clause, an out after the end of this year, but you save a little bit of money just to even cut him. That's one thing. I would prefer to trade him for a 7th round pick, even if I have to, or trade him for a freaking player. Would the Eagles want to give up Jack Driscoll for Alie-Cox? I'd take that trade. I'd take that trade right now in a heartbeat. Would the Eagles want another, tight end like that? They might be able to use him. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
And the thing is, and this is the frustrating part about the last 2 years, is to sit there and give these guys an honest evaluation. And I'm talking about the pass catchers. It's really difficult when you look at the quarterback play that they've received over the last 2 years. I mean, Michael Pittman Jr., he's like, hey, I love this, But whenever you start looking at the tight ends that just didn't seem to get used properly, you look at the multi-running backs, which we just didn't see a whole lot. And honestly, these are some things that I think we're going to be able to see, with Steichen and maybe find some more balance. What's up, Tom?
Basil says Granson doesn't wow me. He's solid, but not special. And after what I saw of him on film, I think he's special. After what I saw last year, the way he was getting open, the way he was making contested catches and fighting for yards, and the way he grew as a blocker as the year went on, I think he could be someone that could be really impressive moving forward. He definitely increased his play from his rookie year to the end of this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have to reiterate, you look at that daggone quarterback play and how much of it was stifled. I mean, good gravy. I mean, Paris Campbell was stifled tremendously by it. The tight ends seemed to be hampered by it. It's like, I mean, you sit there and you watch, Jelani Woods or Alie-Cox go and pop off for a game, 2 touchdowns, 5. And it's like, yeah, I want more of that. And then it's just crickets. It's like nothing, for 3-4 weeks. And so that's the thing we need to also remember is just how much of this was due to the quarterback play or the inconsistency at the quarterback play, and how much of this is just these guys haven't developed, and that goes for Alie-Cox as well. The thing about Alie-Cox is, like I said, I feel like we've already seen enough from the other guys to replace what Alie-Cox provides in the pass catching and the blocking, to be honest, because Molly has regressed in that way. He's no longer, he did not play this year like Molly blocks at all,
No. Granson, by the end of the year, Granson was our best blocking tight end.
So, and man, I'll tell you right now, guys, I know it's all lip service until you actually see him on the field. But if you get to see Andrew Ogletree, if he just comes in at where he left off when the injury happened, which I don't think. I think he will have been elevated just by living vicariously through Jelani because they're such close friends and stuff. But even if he just came in as that where he was at the end of training camp, I'm still excited to see what he does on game day out there.
Absolutely. Daniel, you're dead on.
That's what I said. Michael Pittman Jr. is like, I don't see what everybody's complaining about, but outside of him, then it's a problem.
Yeah. Look, here's the deal. Okay, so we're going to move on now. We have 2 positions left to talk about on the offense. It's 32 minutes in, guys. Please smash that like button. All right, I appreciate you so much. Hit that like button. Share it to your favorite social media. Obviously, could really use some help. We're going to start getting back into these live shows. I'm going to try to do them as often as I possibly can. And then, of course, Patreon. Go check out the Patreon. The link is in the description of the video. A lot of good stuff in the Patreon. You get the, especially my Believe stuff. You get that unedited. And immediately after we get done recording, as soon as I download that, it goes straight up to YouTube. The whole thing, all of it, the entire week's show, for Patreon subscribers only.
And I'll be honest with you guys, Patreon's good to be in at all times of year. But right now, at this time of year, that's when Patreon's the most enjoyable because, like you said, a lot of these fans, a lot of these guys that watch this channel are very well, Tom in here, very well knowledgeable of what's going on and stuff. And it is a good time to sit there and just get different points of view, but yet respectfully. And that's the thing, it's a lot of fun. We found ourselves, 3.5 hours. We're like, okay, yeah, we got to wrap this up. We have lives to do,
Yeah, right.
But whenever you can sit there and talk to a group of guys for that long and not feel like, oh man, I got to get out of here. It's a good time. So check it out, guys.
Absolutely. And Rodney McLeod, he'll be here till the end of the month at least. And he's been searching to bring some guys in. I just got a hold of one of my favorite players of the Colts from last season, and he's agreed to be on the show not this week, but the next week. So we've got guests coming on. You ain't going to want to miss the inner, the stuff that's going to happen between takes, the stuff that's edited out that is in on Patreon, but hey, Patreon needs to get out of politics. That's their only problem. I try not to talk about politics or religion too much, but
like I say, is he talking about our Patreon or just the Patreon company?
Oh, I don't know. I try not to talk about politics at all.
We talk about it briefly, but I feel like we
try to stay.
And you want to talk about food or movies or something?
Yeah,
we can chop that up all day long.
Absolutely. We talk about whatever comes up. We got 2 positions left to talk about, and one of them is the wide receiver group. And there's a lot of people out there that think that we are still bereft of talent at wide receiver. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we're depleted because, like you said, Paris Campbell's a free agent this year. I like what we've got with Michael Pittman Jr. I like what we've got with right on, Basil. I like what we've seen briefly from Alec Pierce. Yeah, I get it. He's had a few drops rookie season. I can get past that. But the thing is you look down free agency, you got Paris Campbell, free agency, Ashton Doolin. It's like, we need to bring some of those guys back. And then also I still want to just give me that elite route runner in the next 2 years. I get it, quarterback this year, O-line, those have to be, but I would love to get a top tier route running type of receiver to plug in and elevate that receiver room. But to sit there and think, if we can bring back Paris, maybe Doolin or Pascal, because he's a free agent this year out of Philly, bring some of these guys back even that are familiar, I could see it not being really that much of an issue this season. Maybe something in the mid to late rounds of the draft, but I don't see a lot of swings in free agency. The wide receiver free agent class really isn't even, that wowing,
Sure.
which it's going to change. I get it. There's going to be cap casualties and stuff. So that opinion can change. But right now, as it goes, I'm just like, honestly, bring back some of the talent that we, bring Paris back. Like I said, bring Doolin or Pascal or both, and just find that really good route running receiver.
Very well in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. What? Oh, Pascal. Yeah. Yes, he did. He's always played good, especially, JT would love to have him back. That.
Yeah, right.
This whole running back room.
I'll tell you what, if we re-sign Paris Campbell and get Pascal back, that'd be amazing, because I don't care what any of y'all say. Go watch the tape. Paris Campbell was blocking his butt off out there. He wasn't like T.Y. Hilton, where he just tried to run the guy out of the play, the defender out of the play. Paris would run out there and grab the dude and push him out of the play, and that was what made me go, oh my, that's something you don't expect from a speed wide receiver, is to be physical in the run blocking game. But that's what he's been doing, and it's what he showed last year. And he's still the only wide receiver that did not get hurt and played every daggone game last year. And he was the one out there, him and obviously Michael Pittman Jr. out there just, laying the wood when it comes to run blocking.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I've heard, do you make a deal for Michael Pittman? No. You don't bring a rookie quarterback in here and then just, take and whether you think he's your typical wide receiver one or not, I get that whole conversation it's look, the dude comes out, he plays as hard as anybody on that field. And when he catches it, he may not be able to blow by these guys, but he has no qualms about running them over just like he's a flipping tight end or something, And I love seeing that from Michael. And the thing is, you sit there and you compare what he's good at with, and you not compare, but if you put that together with Alec Pierce and what he's good at, and then you bring Paris Campbell back, these guys really complement each other very well, and then, like I said, if you could just get that elite route running receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr. next year in the draft, but my point is, you go and get somebody that you think is really just going to elevate that wide receiver room. And I don't know that this year is really the time to get it with the other holes that this team has.
I don't know. In order to get Marvin Harrison Jr. next year, we would have to suffer through something. I don't know if I could suffer through it again. We'd have to suffer through another 4 or less win season in order to get him.
Maybe not. There's a lot of quarterbacks coming in next year.
I'm just saying.
Hey, it's my dream, and I'm not letting you take it away from me this year.
I hear you, but he's one of those guys, that you would pass up sometimes. A lot of other talent out there to get a receiver like that. What's up, Roy? Is Okereke going to resign? Asking for a Dolphins friend. I honestly don't expect it for the Colts.
Why would
no
he
way
resign?
on God's green earth he's getting franchise tag.
No, not the way that thing's all set up, because that's like that's all he gets.
$20 million.
Yeah, he gets lumped in with the D edge and stuff, as well. So it's like, but yeah, I thought it said resign. I'm like, why would he resign? But I get it.
I know what he meant.
Yeah.
But look, now we're gonna go move on to the running back room for the Indianapolis Colts. 40 minutes in, and I've kept this moving on pretty good, I think. Anyhow, all right.
Sounds like I'm supposed to derail you now. Challenge.
What do you think of the room? There's a lot of people out there that say trade Jonathan Taylor while the trade is still high. Are you on board with that?
No, I'm not. And this, okay. And this is, I blame you, Jonathan. JT, if you're watching this, I blame you. I'll be honest with you. I've always been, let these guys play out their contracts, bring in new talent and stuff. But I've always said, until you find somebody of special talent. And I really believe JT is one of those dudes. I truly do. I mean, I get it. This year the line wasn't playing real well. He was struggling with some injuries. I get it. It wasn't the season. And it's crazy to sit there and watch a lot of the national people. It's like they totally forgot about JT already, which, hey, I'm on board because he'll quickly remind them next year. But no, I love JT. I love the way he runs. I love the element that he gives you in this offense. I mean, we sit there and we remember what that Eagles offense looked like this year with Sanders running the ball. Now, and this is not to disrespect Sanders, but can you imagine JT running a similar amount of times and getting those opportunities? Holy heavens, JT will eat. And the thing is I don't know how much JT's asking, and that's the big question. Because JT, even for me, as much as I love the way he plays, he could price himself out if he's wanting to be, that. I'm tired of setting the market. I am just tired of setting the market, especially at these positions.
We can't set the market at running back. I mean,
no.
Look, I love Jonathan Taylor, but I'm not giving him 17+ mil a year.
Okay? I know, right?
I love Jonathan Taylor. I will use his butt up and let him go somewhere else and sign a big old contract, and then we'll get ourselves a compensatory pick the year after. All right. That's the way I see it. If he wants 17+, no way.
And where do we honestly think we're going to get for JT? I mean, because I don't see anybody giving a running back with 1 year on their contract a first round pick. No. You know what I mean? And I've heard that, and I'm like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the one that's just fell off the truck or whatever. But to me, maybe a third. If you got a third for JT,
I think you can get a second for him. I think you can get a second. I don't think you can get.
It's just not. It's just not enough to me. It really isn't. But I will also sit there and say that this running back in this draft, I'm getting one of these guys. There's a lot of good running backs in this draft that you can get third. I think you'll be able to get them in the third or fourth round, fifth round, to where you just keep that youth in that running back. I mean, I like what we saw from Zach Moss, Deion Jackson. I know I'm higher on him than you. But you even started getting more on board with that at the end of the year, and
his receiving ability is really nice.
Yeah, and like I said, so I just want to bring another young, mid-round pick. Like I said, I'm not saying first. I'm not even really first 3 rounds. There's other needs, but if you can go fourth, fifth round or whatever.
I never said I wanted to pay Danny Dimes $45 million. All right. I like Danny Dimes.
Yeah.
Go check out the Believe in Colts episode where we just discussed that. All right. I was like laughing when I heard 45. I think he'll get 30 to 35. That's where my line was for him. I not 45 at all.
Yeah, and I'll be honest. I was a little surprised whenever I heard you, because I was like, I bet Lawrence was be on board for 45, but you were like, no. I was like, okay, cool.
No. You need a little bit more prove it than one damn good year. He had a damn good year, but he didn't have 2 or 3 damn good years to earn him a 45+ million a year contract. Look, here's my thoughts on Jonathan Taylor.
I agree with it. Sorry, real quick. Bad Ant says, whoops, wrong one. It wasn't Bad Ant. Sorry. It says last couple games, Zach Moss was very impressive.
Yes, he was.
Yes.
I liked how hard he was running. He reminded me of, Deion was running that hard, his rookie year. Deion Jackson. So, kind of had that feel to it. But anyhow, what I was going to go with Jonathan Taylor. Fact of the matter is, there's a handful of running backs in the NFL that make you respect the run game every down they are on the field. And Jonathan Taylor is that guy. You get rid of Jonathan Taylor, then all of a sudden they don't have to creep up. They don't feel like they need to load that box all the time in order to make sure that he is kept in the box and unable to break a big one, right? And then that makes the passing game much more difficult. Jonathan Taylor is one of those dudes, just being on the field makes the team better.
Yeah.
And that's why I would use him up. And then if he wants to sign a 10, 12, 13 million, I'm okay with that.
Oh.
I'm not doing 17. I think 13 is about my limit for Jonathan Taylor.
And the thing is, in this day and age with this league, I mean, the run game is sort of the accessory. The run game is sort of the bling that, So, imagine, if you were sitting there talking about Jonathan Taylor as a diamond ring, he's like a 287 carat diamond ring. He's that big, gaudy, beautiful accessory that just shows that you got that extra level to your offense. So we get this passing game going, get a young quarterback who can sit there and keep these defenses guessing, get an offense that utilizes these tight ends that we were talking about in the multi running back schemes. I'm like telling you guys, this could be a blast in the next couple of years just to watch this team again.
Everybody has a man crush on a specific player that some other people don't have that crush on. All right. Yeah. I will put that on there. I will say that, I really like, Daniel Jones and what he provided. I think that he's gotten better year after year after year after year. And if he shows next year, that's why I think he's probably going to get tagged for like $34 million this year. And then if he proves that he could do another year like he did this year or improve upon it, that's when he's going to get the contract that he wants. But that's just me thinking that. Running back room, I don't think the Colts do much there. I think we probably stay put. We may draft a late round running back like what you're talking about. That's a good possibility because, Chris Ballard, he's going to grab talent wherever it's at. Doesn't matter how deep a talent you have on the roster. He said that multiple times, and I agree with that 100% because, turnover in the NFL is 100%, right? So, it is what it is. But what are we talking? I think that right now, obviously, there are some moves like we talked about where they could go and get a guy, depending upon what happens with Matt Ryan. They could go out and get a guy at the quarterback position, a veteran guy. There's a couple options that we've discussed that are Eagles options on the offensive line that is definitely important to bring over because that run scheme. Now, I understand we don't have an offensive line coach yet. Our offensive line coach went down south. Good luck to him. But look, I'm assuming that Steichen is going to bring in a guy he knows is going to be running a similar scheme to what he wants to run. And that's, he's going to want guys there that already know that scheme,
Yeah.
So that's why I would go ahead and make a move to grab either an Eagles player right now or a former Eagles player that's sitting out there in free agency to help out with the offensive line at the guard spot. Tight end position, I think we're deep as deep can be, so deep that the highest paid guy could go somewhere. All right. Unless he's got excuses, unless he's like, my left arm was completely numb all year. I can't tell you why.
I agree with this statement. And yes, this is the statement.
100%. I've been bitching about that since preseason. You
remember how I sat there and said Chris Ballard needed to sprinkle that GM dust on this offseason? That was the first sign of it right there. Not only did we not retain him, but we got a division foe to pick him up. It's like, all right.
So I will probably be back tomorrow. We'll probably talk about the defensive offseason moves that we could go on. All right. This was just the offensive side that we wanted to discuss. The tag, the thumbnail will have a number 2 on it. It'll be the same thumbnail, but I'm going to drop a number 2 on it and with it, and then it'll say, free agency offensive roster moves. Well, not free agency, but just defensive roster moves. But I think that's the show for today. I think we covered just about everything on the offensive side. I do want to put out a couple mentions real quick.
Easy for you to do.
Excuse me, guys. On the coaching staff, I want you to know teams do not announce when a coach who is currently under contract is retained and is not fired. Okay? So you're not going to hear Gus Bradley is retained. You're not going to hear Reggie Wayne is retained. The only way you'll know is if a change happens. And if it does not happen by a specific time, you could pretty much assume that that's going to stick. And in all honesty, at this point, you would have heard if the Colts were interested in a defensive coordinator, that would have already, it would have been out there in the news, of rumors, that they're looking and interviewing and all this stuff. Gus Bradley, I am 95% sure Gus Bradley is our defensive coordinator next year. And at this point, because I have not heard the Colts going out and interviewing wide receiver coaches, I'm about 75% sure that Reggie Wayne may be retained.
Yeah, I tell you now, that this is the downside to the Colts, but this is, also we like it whenever things are negative or whatever, but is to find out information. And the Colts, a lot of times, they don't release their coaching until they get the whole unit together and that, here, this is what we've got. It's like you sat there and said, no, I don't know who the O-line coach is, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts already know who he's going to be. I wouldn't be surprised if they've already got that put away and just haven't let us know, for some reason. But there again, it's just, this is going to be an awesome year to watch this team. And the thing is it started, with the coaching hire. I feel like they did a real good job with Steichen. Let's sit there and see what these guys build. Let's see who we see wearing and representing Colts stuff at the combine. Maybe we'll be able to glean a little bit of something there just by watching who's talking to who and stuff. So
absolutely. Bad end, I'm not going to bring that up because of the word you dropped in there, but they blocked him from interviewing because some of the coaches that they, were wanting to retain him if they were hired, right? Nothing was said about Steichen, right? Whether or not he wanted to retain him or not. But at this point, you can pretty much assume that, yes, he wanted to retain him because he would have already been looking. And real quick, your thoughts on, who was it, Tom Manning?
Oh, honestly, as far as outside of Steichen, I think that's my favorite hire. Okay. And he's familiar with the Colts. I love what he has brought to that tight end room. I mean, guys, remember that 2018 season was like with Ebron, the good version of Ebron, how dynamic. And then you sit there and you add him in with the Shane Steichen his diverse offensive play style. I'm telling you right now, I'm really on board with that. I mean, and this isn't me saying I don't like the Jim Bob Cooter hire, but to me, I was really a huge fan of Tom Manning. So I think that is going to bode real well, especially to these young tight ends, because I mean, outside of Alie-Cox, nobody has any familiarity with this guy as far as coaching them up. And I think that get in those guys' ears and sit there and give a chance to really help these tight ends reach their potential.
Cryovic says, I think people need to also remember that patience with this season because both at quarterback and how the Colts do, because it's going to take time to develop.
Absolutely.
I am under the here's what I am prepared for this season. I'm cautiously optimistic. The same way I was, last year I said the same thing. I'm cautiously optimistic. Look, I am preparing myself for a bad season, but I'm hoping for a good one. Mm-hmm. That's the way I'm looking at it, right? Whenever you have a new head coach and a new quarterback, that is something legitimately generally does not end up with that team doing very well that first year. But this is a different situation than when that situation generally happens in the NFL. When that generally happens, those teams are bereft of talent for the most part on the entire team. They have done a complete makeover, right? This team has not done that, right? Mm-hmm. They have retained half their coaches. They have retained the majority of all their talent so far. There is a crap ton of talent on this team. If they can get something going, now quarterback, though, that's the big thing. That is the most important position, player-wise on this team. So we're going to go as well as the quarterback is able to adjust to the NFL, in his first year.
Yeah, and we've said it. I mean, none of these guys are a finished product that we're going to get at quarterback. None of these guys are that, generational type talent. All these guys are going to have pros and cons. But the thing is you look at the character of all four of these young men. You look at their abilities. I get it. Some have lower floors, some have higher ceilings. But my point is all these guys are going to have to grow and develop. Rookie, and like I said, we need a wide receiver. You said we needed to have a struggling year, but the thing is I want this year to be a struggling learning year. I don't want it to be a struggling year and like in quicksand and you just can't get out like I felt like we were in last year. I just felt like no matter what happened, we weren't learning anything to make us any better. This year, new coach, rookie quarterback, a lot of young talent, a lot of coaches that haven't been together a whole lot. I mean, Jim Bob Cooter only had 1 year crossover with Steichen, and it was in an advisory role. So there's things that are going to have to work out. So let's just remember this year that let's let these guys grow, develop, and just that's all I want to see, improvement. And I know this isn't going to get a lot. This is going to upset some people, but that whole 1% better. If we see that, a little bit more and use that mentality this year,
just keep chopping wood, man.
But that's what I'm saying. Just let these guys grow. I'm not putting near the expectations on the 2023 team like I did the 2022 team. We've found some errors in our way of thinking. I think Chris Ballard and people have figured out. I think Irsay realizes some of the things he did wasn't advantageous. So let these guys grow on that side of things. And fix it when you're building the roster, and then sit there and let this roster grow together. And man, by the end of the year, let's just play some of our best ball at the end of the year, not at the middle of the season.
Yep. All right, guys. Appreciate each and every one of you. Please smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're not subscribed, and tag that notification bell so that you are notified next time we go live or upload a video. We will be going live. I'm planning on it tomorrow evening, approximately about the same time, to talk about the defensive roster moves for the 2023 Indianapolis Colts season. And until next time, I'm Lawrence Owen. That's Colts Loyalist. And as usual, have a good one. Oh, yeah.
Just because a player's not a household name doesn't mean we can't make him a household name.
Who is going to be the Indianapolis Colts quarterbacks coach?
Old man Rivers.
That's a good question. Later.